expensive, and then also that it increases in terms of the term at the end of the term. Okay? All right, let's go to the next one. Whole life insurance. And most of us know whole life insurance because you heard people say, well, I want that kind of an insurance policy where I can borrow money off of it. If you're talking about that kind of a policy, you're generally referring to a whole life or permanent insurance policy. So a whole life policy is generally defined as a level premium, meaning that the premium doesn't change. It's level coverage, meaning that the coverage amount doesn't change, but then that the cash value accumulates over a period of time. And then I say that's similar to or opposite of where we talk about a term policy being similar to renting an apartment. A whole life policy is similar to building equity in a home. You know how that is. When you bought your house 25 years ago, you had no equity in it. The longer that you had your house, there's equity that can be built up in the house. So if you ever wanted to take money out of it to finance your kids' college, or you want to go buy a boat, start that retirement home, then that's what you have in a whole life policy is cash value that builds up the longer you have that policy in place. Okay. As I said, similar or opposite of the term policy, this one tends to be more expensive for higher amounts, but the advantage is that once you take out this particular type of policy, regardless of the age that you get, you could go from 50 all the way up to age 80. The premiums will never change. That's a huge advantage to consider. Well, here's one of the other important things about term insurance as well as whole life insurance is that your premiums don't change even if your health condition does after you've taken out the policy. Well, what does that mean? Let's say that you take out a policy and your health is completely clean. When they issued the policy, there weren't any health concerns that you had, and the insurance company issued the policy. But 2 years down the road, out of the blue, there was no prior indicator that you had. You developed some form of cancer, or you developed diabetes or something. Well, as long as you have that life insurance policy in place, that insurance company cannot change the premium. They cannot take that policy away from you. They cannot decline you at all as long as you continue to pay your premium. So the healthier that you are, and that's why I tell people, get insurance while you're healthy. But even if you're not, it doesn't mean that an insurance company is not going to be able to insure you. And as we talk about in the next slides, probably, you're going to probably pay more for it, but it's better to have something than to have nothing. Okay. The next one we're just going to briefly touch on. This one is called universal life insurance. This is for people who say, well, you know what? I want to put a bit more money into a life insurance policy because I want the cash value to accumulate. I want to make sure that I can change the amount of life insurance that I have on it. Well, with universal life, it gives you that type of flexibility. But for this particular conversation, I really just wanted to be able to stick to the term and the whole life or permanent insurance. But if you're ever interested, whether or not it's for for yourself or your family members, one of the things and the features of a universal life policy is that the cash values are increased, but it's based upon the performance of how that company does, or if it's what they call a variable universal life, it's based upon a stock or the performance of the stock market. Okay, so that's just more FYI than for a long-term discussion on today. But if you'd like to have more information on that one, I'd be more than happy to talk with you further, or even encourage you to talk to your agent about that as well. Well, let's get into some of the meat here. What happens when an insurance company is considering a policy? It always goes to an underwriter, and all life insurance companies subject their policies to underwriting. And I'm going to get into something because I know that you probably see all the different commercials out there for companies that say you don't need to have a medical exam and so forth. Well, we're going to talk about that. Okay. But all policies are subject to some form of underwriting, and that addresses the issues of your current health condition, being what's your age, what's your height, what's your weight, and some other medical factors. Because yes, they're looking at height weight distribution. That's very important to an insurance company because sometimes they know that depending upon a person's BMI, that will make a determination of some medical conditions that might be even hidden to the person that's applying for the policy. Well, the next item, yes, insurance companies look and they consider pre-existing conditions, but it depends upon the nature of that pre-existing condition. If you suffer from some type of an allergy, that might not be something that is a big concern to them. But if you've had a prior stroke or you've had something like that, then that is something that is considered as a part of their underwriting process. Well, here's the next one. As a part of underwriting, they may require medical exam, some additional questions, or they may ask for a doctor to provide medical records to be able to learn more about your medical condition. So then, what does the insurance company do with that information? Once you take the application and once they get that exam, then they take it to what they call the rating process. And this is where they determine whether or not they're going to approve the application or not. And how is that determined? Well, they base it upon the results of everything that I just mentioned above there. And these policies can be issued at what they call a standard rate or even a substandard or even preferred. Well, some companies have what they call a regular normal rate. Whenever you say a standard rate, it means that they assume that you may have some basic medical issues. Like, for instance, I have high blood pressure. Well, unless it's uncontrolled, they just consider that to be maybe a standard rating. But if it was out of control and I'm on an abundance of medications, then they may still issue the policy, and then they may give me what we call a substandard or a table rating, depending upon the severity of that condition. It could be diabetes. It could be a prior heart situation. Any of that will be depending upon that. And then, yes, there are companies that will accept people who have had issues with prior cancer situations, but it generally means that the person had to have been cancer free for a certain period of time. But because this is a universal conversation we're having, there are some companies out there that specialize in providing policies for people who live with cancer. But let's just say that you're that person that works out and you drink all the right stuff, and that ain't me. You eat all the right stuff, that ain't me. Okay, you work out all the time, that ain't me. Okay, but you might be that person out there, and they may say, well, wow, Alice, she's in fantastic condition here. And because she's in fantastic condition, then we may give her what's considered to be a preferred rate, a super preferred rate, or even the best rate that they may have available, which is an elite rate. So whereas I may get their standard rate for the same amount of insurance, her insurance premiums may go down almost $30 a month because she's in a much better health situation. Okay. All right, let's go to the next. I don't have a lot of screens here because I'm more interested in your questions that I want to try to address. Well, here's what Connie brought me to the table for, to talk about final expense policies. Final expense policies are designed to cover burial expenses or other final debts that you might have. Well, final debts, And depending on what your merit status is, some of us know that, upon our death, some of those debts may wind up just disappearing altogether. Or depending upon whether or not you have a trust that's set up, or you have a family member, or if you're married, then you may have debts that might still exist after you leave. And or let's say that if you are single, but you have a condo or you have a house that still has an existing mortgage on it, but your goal prior to death was to not lose your house at the very end, that maybe you want to be able to give it to a family member and at least have some money for them to continue to pay the mortgage. That's one of the good things about a final expense policy. Or like what happens most times is that when somebody passes away, all of a sudden somebody is saying, oh, you know what, do I have any life insurance? Did that person have any life insurance? And then they start scrambling. They're like, well, let's find out. Was there any insurance that they had on the job? Oh my God, I think that, Carolyn took out a policy many, many years ago, but guess what? I found that she had this policy, but it lapsed, okay? And maybe nothing is in place. So you always want to make sure that you have something where your death doesn't become a burden to someone, but rather a celebration. I know I used to say that when I would see people pulling somebody out of the casket, crying and crying and crying, I would always say to myself, that's because that person knows that that person took all the money with them. And so you're stuck without nothing. And so you want to make sure that you leave your family in a place where they rejoice that you took care of business versus the fact that they're weeping because you left it in a mess. Well, most final expense policies are typically between $10,000 and $25,000. And most times they don't require a physical final exam. And it's generally available to people who are between the ages of 50 and 80 years of age. So guess what? You're 48, it ain't for you. You're 81, you're past the situation. So you want to make sure that you look into these kinds of policies that when you're in that particular age range. Okay? All right, let's go to the next screen. Well, how many of you have heard of, you've seen that Colonial Penn commercial? Okay. Now, a part of my presentation is not to disparage any kind of a competitor or anything like that. Mine is to simply present information. And one of the things that whenever I watch other insurance companies on the television, I always make sure that I listen very carefully to what they're saying. And what you see, and that Colonial Penn says that they have that $9.95 per month type of policy. And they also say what? They say that there are no medical questions and that there's no medical exam. Well, remember in the prior slide, I said that all life insurance companies do some form of underwriting. Well, they do their underwriting a little bit different. And the source that I get this from is colonialpenn.com. You can look it up yourself. And their actual language says that acceptance can be guaranteed because of a limited death benefit paid during the first 2 years. Well, what does that mean? Well, limited death benefit, as it applies to this particular company, means that they will pay for accidental death only within those first 2 years. Accidental death only. Let's say that you're in a car accident, accidental death, they'll pay for that. Let's say that you're walking down the street, getting across the street, you get hit by a bus, accidental death, they'll cover for that. But if within those 2 years, sudden heart attack, diabetes, brain aneurysm, anything that occurs that is considered to be a natural cause, they will not pay anything during that particular first 2 years. So that's a part of what they mean in terms of the limited death benefit. And so you want to make sure that as you're looking at insurance companies, see whether or not they have what's considered to be that limited benefit paid period, because most insurance companies do. So just make sure that you pay attention to the language, okay? As a part of Colonial Penn, I'm not going to get into a lot of the information, but there's a maximum amount of life insurance that you can purchase at that $9.95 per month, but it's based upon your age. So if you're age 50 years of age when you want to purchase that policy, you may be able to buy a larger amount of insurance than the person who's 65. So that's important information that if you're considering Colonial Penn or other companies, just make sure that you pay attention to that. Because when any company says that there are no medical questions and no medical exams, then just make sure that you know that either they've written the premium built into what it is that you're going to be paying, or that they're going to have some conditions associated with that policy. Okay, next. Guess what, ladies? Life insurance rates are still gender and age based. You're kidding. In this world, you mean that there's still age discrimination? There's still sex discrimination? Well, guess what, ladies? This is to your benefit that women still pay less for life insurance than men because we die earlier. And so they base this into their tables. And because women still do have a longer expected lifespan, that's the reason why life insurance for women is cheaper than life insurance for men. So if you had a similar man and wife, man and woman who are both 65 years of age, health condition exactly the same, their premiums will not be the same because the man is going to have a higher rate than the woman. And guess what? There's another caveat in there that smokers, you're going to pay more than what a non smoker is going to pay. And let me just give you another thing here. Now, I know it's legal in Illinois today, but if you're ready to puff, okay, or you're taking some kind of a product that's similar to that, if that shows up in a life insurance exam, that could influence your rate as a smoker rate. So just know that as well. Okay. Well, I am almost done, ladies, here. But I wanted to bring you here some statistics. And I know the first one kind of like just gives a replication of what you see below. But it says that back in 2019, only 57% of Americans had any type of life insurance. And there were about 770 companies that were selling life insurance in about 2018. That 51% of Americans would rather discuss their insurance needs in person. And guess what? All those young people, the millennials, are different than the baby boomers, but they generally buy their life insurance policies online. That's why younger people, they buy their life insurance policies online. And guess what? We as older people, we're buying life insurance policies online as well. But the staggering statistic that you see right there below is 4 out of 10 Americans don't have any life insurance because they don't qualify. And I would even just add, I don't have the specific statistic on it, but there are a lot of Americans who qualify for life insurance, but just don't have it. Why? Many different reasons. Some people say, and it's because they don't have the knowledge, they say, I can't afford it. What else do they say? I don't need it. Well, everyone needs to have some type of life insurance because at the end of our life, it's going to affect somebody else. Okay. Who can be your beneficiary? This is very important. Who can be a beneficiary? Insurance companies that if somebody is not related to you by blood, it means that what is their insurable interest? In other words, they're trying to say, if this person is not related to you by blood or by marriage or anything like that, what is the reason why this person would want to benefit from your death? We hear all those horror stories all the time where people say, this person had a life insurance policy and then this person bumped them off. Well, they don't want to have a situation where it comes looking bad on them, that this person had no reason to be able to have a life insurance policy where a financial gain would help them out. So let's say that if you're not married, but you're living with someone else and you all share a mortgage together, guess what? That's an insurable interest, because if something happens to you or has something happens to that other person, that loss of income to assist with that mortgage could make you lose that home altogether. So that's how you would explain that to the person for the beneficiary. Some of you have set up land trusts. You've set up family trust. You can make your trust a beneficiary as well. You can make immediate or extended family members. It could be a nephew. It could be a grandson. It could be a great grandson, as long as they're considered to be family members. Nonprofit organizations. There are a lot of individuals who say, I want to leave my money to this charity, or I want to leave my money to this church because this church has blessed my life in such a way. So yes, you can leave money to your church, you can leave it to a charitable organization or to any other nonprofit organization. And as I said, that grandchildren, that's always something very important to do, is that if you want to leave a legacy to your grandchildren, include them in your life insurance as a beneficiary. But the caveat here is that if they are under 18 years of age at the time of your death, then whoever their family member is who controls their finances, that person really holds the money for them until they turn 18. So be careful if you're going to consider your grandchildren in there if they're under 18 years of age. All right. This is almost the end here. 10 things that you should know about life insurance beneficiaries. And this is according to Forbes.com, an article on June 26, 2020. You don't need a paper policy to file a claim. So in other words, if someone has passed away and you can't find the actual policy itself, you don't need the actual policy. If you knew that they worked at this particular company, call that company. Say, okay, Maggie, I think used to work at this particular company. Can you check to see if she had a life insurance policy? And they will tell you yes or no. If you think that they were at MetLife and that you think that they had a life insurance policy, call there, and then they can let you know with information to prove who you are. They can let you know that you can file a claim. Number two, you're definitely going to need a certified copy of someone's death if you're trying to claim life insurance benefits. Number three, a life insurance payout is tax-free. Your beneficiary doesn't pay any taxes upon the life insurance benefits. Guess what? Patrice is going to be excited when I'm gone, y'all. In fact, I know that she's got a planned trip all the way around the world, knowing that she's got a tax-free benefit when I'm ready to leave this particular earth. And she can ready to stick her head in here. And then next of all, what's important is that you may not get the full policy face value. Well, what I mean by that, if you have any type of a whole life policy where it's had cash value on it, and you've been borrowing on that money throughout the entire period, you may not, or your beneficiary may not get all of that money because you may have been pulling some of that down over the life of the policy. Only the beneficiaries listed on the policy are going to be paid. So if your name wasn't on it, if your grandchildren's name, if your daughter, your son's name, but you intended to leave it, out of luck, okay? The company is not required to inform you who the other beneficiaries are. You know you want to know. Did they leave anything to my sister? Did they leave anything to my brother? They're not going to tell you nothing. By law, they are not required to share any of that information with you in terms of who else is entitled to the benefit. This is not a will. This is a life insurance policy. Difference between a will and a life insurance policy. Don't wait for the life insurance company to contact you. As I said, start doing your research. Payout methods. There's a lump sum, there's what they call installments over 5 years, or you can span the payments over your lifetime if a loved one dies and you don't want to blow all that money at one time. So it's what they call payout options. Important to know, make sure that your policy has not lapsed. If you're paying for life insurance, let me implore you, do it on like automatic debit or something like that. Charge it to a credit card where it comes out all the time. So then that way you don't have to worry about, oh my God, did I pay this life insurance policy this month? Let that peace of mind be with you. And then, as I said, last of all, number 10, once confirmed, most benefits will be paid out in 1 month's time. You're not going to have to wait for 6 months to get that particular money. Sometimes that if they get the death benefit, the death certificate, you fill out the form. Sometimes a person, a beneficiary, can have that check in almost 10 days. So it's important to know that information. Well, here's some things, some final things to consider, and then I'm ready for questions. One of my employees in my office said this, and I love this about what he said. He says that a life insurance policy of any amount is better than no life policy at all. So in other words, if it's a $5,000 policy, guess what? That's better than zero life insurance policy. Next of all, purchase what you can afford and able to sustain the payment. Don't have some salesman sell you $100 per month life insurance policy, and guess what? Your light's about to be cut out, okay? So that does not make a lot of sense. Make sure that you're doing it for something that you can have long term. And then last of all, if you're a grandparent, consider purchasing life policies for your children and your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren. It has to be with their consent, but make sure. For myself, I have a life insurance. My daughter is in her 40s. My son is in his late 30s. I have life insurance policies on them. I have life insurance policies on every one of my grandchildren because I don't want to be that person that if something happens to them all of a sudden, that I have to be that person passing the hat around. I want to be responsible and take that responsibility. Well, that's the end of my presentation. I'm going to stop and I'm just going to open it up, or however, Connie, you want to do that.
Are there any questions, comments? Let's take questions first, and then we'll go further.
Hi, thank you, Thomas, so very much. It's very informative. I have an end-of-life policy for my mother and myself. But you know what, as you're talking, I may want you to look at that, okay? Because my mother, she had a stroke a year ago and she's still in the hospital. But when I took out this end-of-life policy for her, she was 83 already, okay? So I may want to reevaluate what I have. So are you taking in office or over Zoom? What's the best way to have a meeting with you?
Over the telephone, or I even have, well, my office computer system does not allow me to do a Zoom. However, they have their own portal that would allow me to do a visual meeting if that's what you would like to do. Or you can email the documents to me and then I'd be more than happy to do that. As I said at the very beginning, this is not about sales necessarily for myself. So I'd be more than happy to share with you, because if it's definitely a good policy, I'm going to tell you that. And if it's something that I think that you need to reconsider, I'll share that honestly with you as well.
Well, thank you, because you are my insurance agent for
That's
my car
right.
anyway. And I just moved, so all my documents is boxed up, but I will get in touch with you within the month. Thank you so very much.
All right, Carolyn, thank you.
Anyone else?
Thomas, how do we get in contact with you?
Sure. At the, I'll make sure that I can just put my information. I'll just put it in the chat right now for you. So I'm going to give you my office number. And then I also have a website. I'm putting that in the chat right now to you all, okay? And so that is my office contact number. And as I said, I am available at most times. I have office hours, but I am available after hours as well too. But as I said, mine from the bottom of my heart is just to make sure that, as Connie said in the very beginning, that especially as African Americans, that we find ourselves in a very destitute part where we're having to take care of family members at the last minute. And guess what? Sometimes life insurance can be as cheap or inexpensive as buying a pizza every week for a month. And we don't think about that. We'll go out there and we'll pay for a cable bill, we'll pay for cigarettes, we'll pay for a big fancy dinner at a seafood restaurant. And I just want you to be able to know that it is quite affordable. My wife said that she wants to ask a question. So yes, dear, you can
I
ask a
have
question.
a question.
Sure.
Victoria has a question also.
Okay, go ahead,
I have,
Victoria.
I have a couple of questions,
Sure.
Okay, go
Thomas,
ahead.
and forgive me if my internet breaks up. It's kind of unstable where I'm at. I'm currently in Kentucky. But I want to know about term life. Can you cash that in at any time?
As I indicated, that term insurance has no cash value associated with it. So term insurance is considered to be just pure
Okay, so you
insurance.
can't close that, you can't close that off at any time. You have to wait till you die to receive that money,
Well, remember, you
your
don't
family
receive
to
the
receive that
money.
money.
Yes, the family is the one that will
The
receive that
beneficiary.
particular money. That's correct. As long as the policy has been kept in effect the entire time. Now, I did say at the very beginning of the presentation, there is a type of term insurance policy that can benefit you while you're still alive. And you could talk with one of your representatives down there in Kentucky, especially. It's called a return of premium term policy. It means that if you're still living at the end of that prescribed term, every single penny that you put into it
Mm,
will be returned to you. But if you passed away, then it means that the death benefit would still be paid in full to your beneficiary. But term policies typically don't have any kind of cash value associated with it. It's pure insurance.
okay, so if you buy the final expense insurance, once that is paid off, will the remainder of that money, if there's any left, go to your beneficiary?
Now, I'm not sure if I understood your question. If you could just say that one more time, Victoria.
No, you talked okay, we talked about final expense and you said it will go to pay off your debt if you had any debt left. So if you have a minimal debt and you have that final expense, once that debt is paid off, will the remainder of that money go to a beneficiary?
Okay, good question. So let me make it perfectly clear that you determine when you take out the policy who the beneficiary is. You don't set the mortgage company as the beneficiary. You don't set the credit
Okay,
card company
okay.
as the beneficiary. You set, let's say it's a family member. And if the family member, you don't set the funeral home as the beneficiary. You set a family member that you trust, that let's say that if you've got a $15,000 final expense policy, and that it's only going to cost $10,000 to be able to pay that funeral off, that check is going to be made to, let's say, your sister for the full $15,000. Sister
Mm-hmm,
can pay the $10,000 to take care of the funeral expenses. And then the
mm-hmm.
rest your sister would have for herself, especially if that's the way that you want to have it done. Or if you had something marked out saying, hey, I want you to pay this off, I want you to pay that off. It's all controlled by your beneficiary. But I never recommend that you make any entity like a mortgage company, funeral home, or a credit card company a beneficiary.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I have one more question.
Sure,
I have one more question. I'm sorry.
that's
So if
okay.
you have if you have the return premium on a term insurance policy and you decide that you want to get that return premium back, are you allowed to go back to that same insurance company?
Yes, you are. So good question, Victoria. Excellent. So let's say that you have a 10-year return of premium policy, and you say in year 7, you know what? I don't want this policy any longer. then it means that whatever money that they guaranteed that you were going to get at the end of 10 years while you were still alive, then you're not going to get that full amount because you didn't go the whole term.
Right.
Okay. So that means that you could just tell them, I want to cash that policy in, but then that's the end of the life insurance altogether. But that money would be yours, returned back to you.
Can they refuse me if I want to go back?
No, it's your money.
No, no.
Okay.
It's your
No,
money.
I'm saying if once I take that money and I decide in a couple of months I want to get some of this insurance again, can they refuse me as a client?
Oh, no, 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 no. You'd have to start all over again, though. So remember, you're going to
Yes,
be
that's what I'm saying.
older.
Yes.
Oh, no, they can't refuse you.
Yes.
No, that's your
Okay.
money. They would just start you a new contract. So in fact,
Okay.
Patrice was actually, my wife was trying to explain that to me, that was your question. So I'm sorry I misunderstood initially.
That's okay. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Hey, Patrice.
Hi, dear. How you doing? I'm a
She had
bit
a
down here.
question.
I'm not here. I'm here.
Real fast.
Not
I
in
don't know
Africa
how
right
much
now.
how much time is shared, but my mom died. I didn't think she had life insurance. She's always told us she didn't have it, and she did not have it. And so after we had found the monies to pay for the funeral expenses, I found out my dad had a policy from his company, and even he wasn't aware it because it was his policy. Was she had a part of the policy also. I don't know how much he said that to you, but if you've worked a job before and you think you have some benefits, double check to see if you have a spouse, that spouse has benefits also. Because I found out that the fact my mom had a part of his benefits, life insurance, and now my dad has life insurance, a small portion with his company. I now have to change the beneficiary since my mom is dead. It would be me. My point all of this is saying, make sure, because some of us are older on the line, I don't want to assume all of us are, but make sure you tell a very well trusted family member all of your businesses, all of the companies you've been involved in, where you think you might have policies, so that when you die, we're not searching around looking for things, that they already know where to go, how to go. My mom and dad had told me years ago they had a plot somewhere. And luckily my brother remembered, but I didn't know where it was and things like that. So somebody in the family, she finally got an attorney to help us navigate. And we knew who that person was, some things. But make sure as we're getting older, we're telling some trusted family member everything that there is to know about your financial situations and your insurances.
And thank you, Patrice. And in fact, she brings up an excellent point too, because and it talks about beneficiaries, that if you've been married before, and let's say that you're divorced now, or you've lost a spouse, you want to make sure that you're looking at the current information on your beneficiary, because you don't want, let's say, an ex-husband that you just didn't have a good relationship with, and then you pass away, and then guess what? He still gets the benefit from your death.
Oh my God.
Absolutely. So remember the insurance company, if he calls up the insurance company, he finds out that, that you left him as beneficiary, then you know what? He's going to say, praise Jesus. I hated her, but thank you, Lord, that she left me in a will and in her insurance. So that's something very important. And I thank Patrice for reminding me to talk about that, because you do want to check your beneficiaries, and you at any time can change your beneficiaries. Your company will generally provide you with a form that you will just sign, that you will have somebody to witness your signature, and then you can always make that particular change.
That happened.
I got a question and a comment. This is Martha. First of all, my comment is that I got term life. I didn't know anything about it. I got it 100 years ago. I was working. But my term life, I had a $50,000 policy. But then when I got 65, they cut it and it was 14,000, and I didn't have to pay nothing else on it. But like you say, I can't get no money off of it, but upon my death, my beneficiary will give 14,000 instead of 50,000.
Well, and that's still great, Martha. I mean, so even though, and I think that Paula was talking about that too, is that at the very beginning, that if you have retired from your company, sometimes the group insurance that you have, that let's say that if you had a $25,000 group life policy, when you retired, they probably now said, okay, in your retirement, you can still have a life insurance policy, but since we're not going to be paying that much more for it anymore, we'll reduce the amount of it. But then also what you will find out, and that's the reason why I check with your HR benefits department, sometimes even when they reduce it in half,
Yeah.
every year after that, it keeps going down and down and down. And sometimes it may go down to a very minimum level. But like what Martha was saying, that if her company says it stops at 14,000 and her beneficiary, regardless of her age, upon death, gets 14,000, that's a huge benefit for you, Martha.
Okay. And my question that I wanted to ask is, I don't understand after, okay, you say this insurance for age 50 to 80. What happens after 80 if you still living?
Well, remember as I said that it's from 50 to 80 to acquire the policy. The policy continues after age 80. You're only eligible for those policies between the age of 50 and 80.
Oh, okay, okay. And then my last one, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I had my boys as beneficiary, my insurance. I got more than one insurance policy, 50-50. So since my son is deceased, do I have to go change something, or my living son will just get everything?
Well, it's easier for you to contact your company to let them know that your son is deceased, because otherwise the insurance company has no way of knowing that he's deceased. They're just going to make out a check to your son who's living and a deceased son. And then you're going to have a hard time trying to cash a check to a deceased son.
Okay.
So it's best that you let the company know that you now want to make your living son 100% beneficiary. So
Okay.
it's not complicated upon your death.
Okay, I'll do that Monday then. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Victoria has another question.
Yes, Victoria.
What I
Victoria.
asked was if you had any idea what the what the average rate of term end of life insurance was. And then I also know that Gwen has a question. She's got her hand up
Hey, Gwen.
for quite some time.
Sure. Let me try to answer that question for you. Because of the fact that insurance companies set their own rates, it would not be appropriate for me to say what the
Okay.
cost of something would be. It is going to be depending upon all those factors that I said. Like you're in Kentucky, well, Kentucky rates are going to be different than Illinois rates. Okay, so you'd have to see how they have it filed. So if you contacted, let's say Allstate, and then you contacted MetLife, and then you contacted State Farm, each
I
one of
live
those.
I live in Chicago. I'm on holiday here. I live in
Oh, okay, but you didn't take us with you, so okay. So, but each company is going to have its own. Each company is going to have its own rate base. Okay. So, but you can
Okay,
always just get
okay.
that information. And it's the easiest thing you can do is just ask for a quote. And that will answer some of your
Okay,
questions.
I'll give you a
for
call, okay?
All right, Victoria. Thank you.
Look forward for a call.
I
You're
look
welcome.
forward to it. Gwen?
Well, the question I had, you answered it when you answered Martha's question about the past 80, but I did want to make a statement and to tell everyone to be cautious about looking into their policy and keeping close contact with the premiums and things that are being deducted, because I have my premiums taken directly out of my checking account. And about 4 or 5 years ago, I noticed that the premiums were no longer being taken out of my account. And so after about the second or third month or something, I contacted the insurance company and they had me as deceased.
Oh,
Yes.
but look at God. Miracle. Miracle.
Resurrection.
So my thing was, okay, my boys are not walking around here with any more expensive items or anything. So what did you do with the money? And you know, things of that nature. So I'm just saying, just be keeping close contact with your business.
Excellent. Excellent point, Gwen. Thank you.
And why she's saying that, please be continue to communicate and keep up with your own information in your own business. Do not give your personal information out as online or to a person over the telephone that you directly don't know. If you don't know the business person that you're talking to and somebody has called you, and especially they're calling a lot of us nowadays saying different things, do not give your information out, because you don't want somebody to call you dead and you're not dead. You don't want anybody to take your money from your account. And it's not, you didn't, you want to give them whoever you want to have the authority to keep up with your own funds. I keep trying to tell everybody, I don't have enough money to lose.
Come on,
And
that's
the
good,
little
Connie.
that I have, I would like to keep.
That's good,
Amen.
Connie.
Amen.
So, you know, it's a lot of people making a lot of calls. And I did make a promise to Monica that we will get together sometime in August and figure out how to keep up with our information on all that Thomas has said on written pieces of paper, so that your loved ones will have something written down so they don't have to scramble to find out all of these insurance policies.
Connie, I think that Paula did have a question. Paula, you had a question?
I do have a question. Actually,
Mhm.
I have a couple. So
Okay.
I still carry insurance on my kids. Okay. What is a good amount? So it's only $15,000. Is that a decent amount? I'm not trying to get rich if they pass. I just want to be able to bury them. So
Yes, I would recommend anywhere between about $15,000 to $25,000 for our children and our grandchildren. And I even say that if you're thinking about grandchildren, I would even up that to maybe 50,000. And the reason why I'm saying that is because that we don't know what the cost of services like that will be as they get older. So anywhere between $15,000 and $50,000. And if you're taking out, you know, a policy, I mean, every one of my grandchildren, that when they were 0 years of age, and you can take out a life insurance policy, as I said, on your grandchildren, as long as
I don't have any. I'm still praying for grandchildren.
well, they coming. Come on, lay hands. So, but but just as general information, that you can always write a life insurance policy on an infant as long as the infant is 15 days, years or older.
Oh,
But
okay.
if it is going to be a policy, then that means that you'd have to get written permission. It's what they call like a parental authorization form signed by the parent, but you can be in control of taking care of paying for that policy if you wish. The parents would be the owner, but you would be the person that's sponsoring the payments for them. Okay.
All right. And then my other question was, if you have whole life insurance, do you recommend having this final expense policy?
Well, and let me make it very clear. Whole life insurance is a final expense policy.
Oh, okay.
As I said, that there are variations. Final expense generally means the fact that it's a limited amount of insurance. But if you just wanted to get regular insurance, if you said, well, Thomas, I want to get a $75,000 whole life policy, you can still get that. But that's generally going to be subject to some underwriting. You're going to probably have to answer more questions, take an additional medical exam. So you're not limited. So, and the important thing, ladies, to know is that you can have several different insurance policies with different companies. You know, no one says, well, you can't have a policy over here and one over here and one over here and one over here. You can have 12 companies with 12 different insurance policies. It's your money and it's totally up to you, but you just make sure that you let 12 people know that upon your death, that you're going to make them happy, okay?
Yeah.
That they're shouting for a good reason, okay?
All right, that was it. Thank you.
Thank you. And in fact, and ladies, for some of you all may not know that one of the most wonderful people that I know is on this call, And I call her, for the sake of purposes, my baby sister. That's Reverend Yvette Breckenridge. So yes, and I want you to know I'm so proud of everything that she is and that she does, and that if she tells any childhood stories about me, they're all lies, okay? All lies, okay? All lies. Some of them are truth, but I'm gonna call them lies. Okay, so well, Connie, I'm gonna throw this back to you because I know that you had a time frame that you wanted me to stay in. I want to be respectful of that.
Okay, do we have any other questions or comments?
I have a comment. I just think this was good. I did get on late because I was with my pregnant daughter. So praise God for that. So it's coming, it's coming, it's coming, Paula. And I want to thank you because having a nephew that I'm actually going to be doing his memorial services on the 19th who didn't have insurance, this is information that I will be sharing with my family, how important it is with his siblings that they have insurance so people won't have to come together, you know, and do what we did. But it was no big deal, you know what I mean, for us, but the aunts and uncles. But everybody needs to have some type of insurance. And I too have been paying for my daughter's insurance. I pay hers that way. Hey, if her and her husband got something, that's on them, but she's my kid.
That's
So I
it.
want to make
That's
sure
it.
anything happen, my kid is okay.
That is
So thank
absolutely
you
it,
so
Michelle.
much.
Well, thank you as well. And I do appreciate it. And you hit on something that I probably want to leave everybody with. We live in the city of Chicago. And I think that one of the things that we think about is that we always think about life insurance for us as older people. But we're in the city and we watch the news, unfortunately, every single day to see that something happens to a young child. And my heart just breaks when a family has to experience a loss of an individual. And then the bigger loss is that you now have to be able to find out how are we going to get this money to be able to take care of that awful expense. So please save that yourself some time, headaches. And I thank you all very much. Connie, thank you very, very much. And to the people of this class, and one of your class members is actually sitting over here on my right-hand side. That's Emily Norris. For those of you all who don't know, that Patrice allows me to have this strange situation that I have 4 other wives, and Emily is wife number 2. And so I'm a blessed, lucky man, y'all. It's back to biblical days. So
We want you guys to know we see all the news about people in Chicago, but I'm in Louisville, Kentucky visiting family, and the same thing is happening down
yes,
here. So it's not
yes.
isolated to just Chicago. So people that think they're running from one situation, they're just running to another because God is everywhere. And remember Revelation 6:4, that the red horse has been he's unleashed. So mankind is killing mankind. There's pieces taken. So we all need insurance, no matter where we're at.
Thank you,
Absolutely.
Victoria. Thank you very much for that. Connie, thank you very, very much.
You're welcome. And Yvette,
Thank you,
I
Thomas.
just
Thank you so
stopped.
much.
You're welcome. Yvette, I just stopped the recording. I think. I don't know.
No, it's still going.